This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
What's up, sports fans? CJ the Painkiller DeSimone, host of Weapons Hot Mission Briefs, and you are currently watching the best Sunday morning football show on the internet, the Big Football Show. Enjoy and have a great morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
Happy Father's Day to everyone out there, and hopefully you get a little satisfaction today. Thank you for joining us here on the Sunday Big Football Show and more. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, James Martin, and hopefully Jack Hirsch will be popping in here in a minute as we try to figure out this technical problems that always seems to happen when you go live. Dr. Paul Seminary does it right. He tapes the shows ahead of time in case there's any problems, and then he plays them live. So, I mean, he's got to figure it out, but this show is way too big to tape. We got 2 hours of full of sports for you out there, and we're going to start pretty soon here. A little news for you. If you're following us on the Roku channel, we are high in ratings. We are 3.5 out of 4 stars, equal to some of the bigger networks as far as ratings go, and when we get our stars. So thanks for you out there watching us on Roku. Tell your friends about us. Tell them how to download it. And it should, you'll enjoy the experience, right, James? I mean, there's no show, no network out there like National Streaming Sports. That's for sure. You know what I mean? So.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let's get into some NFL news. And you see, I got down at the bottom kind of rolling through here about 78% of people responded are kind of not interested in the Giants coming on Hard Knocks. But it's really not the Giants' fault. I mean, I don't know why they're on to begin with. Let's bring Keith Angle in here so he can ridicule my Giants also.
Hi.
There's really no hey, Keith, how you doing this morning? So they're calling it Hard Knocks fatigue is what they're saying. 78% of the respondents are a little tired of all the Hard Knocks programs they got coming on. I don't know. I mean, listen, too much of a good thing sometimes is not a good thing. That's an old saying, right? I mean, if you keep seeing the same stuff over and over again, but different teams, I mean, you got the Giants with their offseason, and then you got the Bears following them with their training camps. I mean, do you think that maybe they're just getting tired of it? Are they getting tired of the show Hard Knocks? What do you think, James?
That's a good question. It could be a matter of maybe there could be an indictment on the Giants having any drama in their organization, because usually Hard Knocks is filled with a lot of drama. So I'm not sure. Maybe are people just because most times people are ready for football. They're ready for something in football. So it's weird that 74% are not willing to or not ready to watch this show specifically. So I'm not sure. I don't think people are tired of Hard Knocks. Maybe they just, I don't know. They don't see. Typically the team that goes there, usually there's some drama prior to going into the show. I don't know. So I'm not sure. Maybe the Giants just not drama filled enough.
And they really don't have big names anymore, right, Keith? I mean, Saquon Barkley is gone. They really don't have a high. I mean, Malik Neighbors, I guess, but he's a rookie. Really hasn't done anything yet. But it's not like you're going like last year. They had Aaron Rodgers, right? A big name there, and I don't know. Patriots to me wouldn't be that exciting either, except for maybe Mayo being his first year coaching. I don't know. What do you? I mean, why would you pick the Giants? That's one thing I wondered when they did this.
You've only got X amount of teams that you can select because anybody can turn it down if they've been in the playoffs in the last 2 years. If they have a new coach like the Patriots have, you can say no. So you run out of, or if you've been on it recently, you can say no. But they've only got so many teams that they can choose from, right? And you're right. There's not a lot of drama here. It's not like you got a quarterback battle or you've got and they always find some. They do find some intriguing stories with some of the marginal players trying to make the team, and I think they do a really good job with Hard Knocks. And if there wasn't an appetite for this, they wouldn't be expanding it to a third show because you've got off season, you've got training camp, and then you got the in season one, which I think is the best one actually. The in season one last year with the Dolphins was very good, I thought, and. Again, with the Giants, it's interesting to see how Daniel Jones comes back from his injury, I suppose. And, again, who's going to replace Barkley? So there's some storylines there. But, it's not for everybody, I guess. I guess HBO wouldn't continue to schedule this, though, if they weren't getting enough response and people sponsoring it. So,
yeah, the sponsorship, of course, is the biggest part of that. I don't know. I mean, I've honest to God, I have never watched Hard Knocks, not once.
Some seasons are better than others. Actually, there's a Prime. Amazon Prime has a better show in my mind. I believe it's All or Nothing. I can't remember the name of the show. I think it's All or Nothing, and it's much better in my mind than what Hard Knocks does. I mean, it's all canned stuff. It's edited for, viewership and whatnot. So you're not really seeing things as they really happen. Reality TV ends as soon as you turn a camera on, right? There's no longer reality. So, but some years are intriguing. Some are just kind of, I didn't find the Jets one last year all that interesting, to be honest with you.
Well, way to sit up, Jack. Jack, I think you watched the Hard Knocks series last year with Aaron Rodgers and that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. It wasn't as exciting as people hoped because I think Aaron Rodgers and the Jets made up their mind they weren't going to be controversial beforehand. They're going to be low key because they didn't want to be on Hard Knocks. And so that's just the way it works. It depends the level of enthusiasm that you show. But I think once the Hard Knocks series begins, even the players that don't like it actually start enjoying it because everyone wants to be on the spotlight. They want to watch the show. They want to have a good time with it. And, and you get some classic lines like years ago with the Jets. Joe Namath paid the Jets a camp visit. And Mark Sanchez was a quarterback. And the coach of Mark Sanchez said, Joe, didn't you like to have fun back in the day? And Namath said, well, I had my fun on the field. Off the field, that was all business. So they got a big laugh out of that.
Yeah, if nothing else, Namath was definitely funny. Big signing, Trevor Lawrence, $200 million guaranteed over his contract. Trevor Lawrence to me is good quarterback. I don't know if he's worth it. And a lot of people say, well, a lot of players aren't worth the money they're getting paid right now. Right now, he's being paid higher than Dak Prescott, which is going to make the Dallas Cowboys. It's going to make it a little more hairy signing Dak. I mean, you're not going to let Dak Prescott go. And then you got CeeDee Lamb, who needs to get a contract. Micah Parsons, they can let him go because his contract will go off for another couple of years when his contract comes up. But this is going to make it more difficult. Dak now has even more power as these quarterbacks sign, right, James? I mean, Dak Prescott had better numbers than Trevor last year. I think he led the league in touchdowns with 36, was third in the league with passing yards. So he's probably going to make more than Trevor Lawrence. At least I would think so.
Yeah. So Trevor Lawrence just reset the market. He tied Joe Burrow for $275 million. Not saying he's the most, but he definitely just set the market because at the level of talent that he is right now, you consider him maybe mid-tier to upper mid-tier. As a quarterback, I mean, 2022 he had about 4,100 yards, 25 TDs to 8 interceptions, and a 95 passer rating. And they won their division. But 2023, he was not sketchy, but he was up and down. So, and it's a difficult team to play behind as well. But at the same time, this is what the numbers are for quarterbacks. I mean, he's getting paid more than Joe Burrow. He tied Justin Herbert. He's getting paid more than him. Golf. He's getting paid more than Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts. And is he better than these guys? I would say probably not. I mean, at least if he's in the bunch of them, but he's not getting. He's getting $140 million guaranteed right now, signing at the door. I mean, right out the door. It's coming right to him, and $200 million in guarantees, like the guy said.
Jack brings up a great point. He says, "What are you going to do? You're going to let him go? I mean, that's the best quarterback that's available that you got right now. Unless what, you're going to trade him? I mean, what are you going to do for how do the owners get out of this if they ever do get out of this?"
They're not going to until, again, if they try to get out of this, the players will charge collusion or whatever. So once you open the bottle, you can't put the genie back in. And you can thank the Browns and Deshaun Watson for really setting this market in the beginning. And that's where it all started, a snowball. And as Jack's absolutely right. I mean, it's my thought. Does he deserve it? Well, I'm always of the opinion if somebody's willing to pay it, then you deserve the money. Whether you earn it or not is a different story. But that's the market. You got to have a starting quarterback, and you're going to have to pay these guys. And if the Cowboys want to keep Dak Prescott, they're going to have to start thinking about $60 million a year. That's kind of where we're heading. And
but a lot of it, guys, has to do with potential going forward. We can't evaluate what they've accomplished. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback at least for the rest of his career, basically.
Yeah.
Do you invest in him? Dak Prescott, is he peaked out? I mean, Trevor Lawrence he's going to be good regardless. Dak Prescott, you don't know. He might show signs of greatness. He might slide backwards. He's a real wild card. You get the feeling that Jerry Jones would really like an alternative, but just can't find one.
that's the thing. You got to have somebody, right? Who are you going to get that's better than Dak Prescott? I mean, I understand there's problems there, but who are you going to get that's better? And, you talked about paying for potential. I mean, gosh, that's what's really changed in the whole market in sports in general, right? There was a time where you basically got paid for what you did, and right, it had done up until then, and maybe you didn't earn the money later in your career that you were getting paid. Now we're paying guys for what they might do, in the next 5 or 10 years, and it's hard because you got to. If there's not an alternative, what do you do?
I will say that Jerry Jones, he exponentially got he recovered, or not recovered, but he was able to get expound upon his investments. Dak was drafted in the 4th, so I mean it's not like he's number 1 overall. So you can look at it from that standpoint and say that okay, at least this guy. There weren't great expectations for Dak. Like at what comes with the number 1 overall pick. So yes, you got to look at it from that too.
Yeah,
it's a good point. And speaking of contracts, right? I went through some of and these were listed as some of the worst contracts in the NFL right now. Deshaun Watson, as Keith mentioned, guaranteed $230 million, and that's only $30 million less than Trevor Lawrence. So we're getting close to Deshaun Watson numbers right now.
Guys, but Sean Watson. By the end of this season, you're not going to be saying that's a bad contract anymore. By the end of the season.
I'll say it. I don't care what he does on the field. It's a bad contract. It's a personal.
Well, the overall number's $230 million guaranteed, but he's going to have a really good year this year. He's going to be worth what they're giving him this year on the quarterback
Based on
quarterback
what?
market.
Based on what? I mean, he's done nothing since when he was
We
out.
know
years.
what he
Based
can
on what?
do. We know what he is. He's just had a rough couple of years with things in his personal life, getting injured, learning the system. He was coming on. He'll be fine this year as long as he's
Trying to stay out of prison. Yeah.
No, hey, listen, he had one bad patch. He's not a criminal. He's not a thug.
He's not a criminal. Oh my gosh.
He didn't go to jail. I mean, he didn't go to jail. Criminal charges weren't brought against him.
Yeah, I know, because 60 people, that's, if there's one person, maybe I give him a pass. But when this many people make charges against you,
I'm not saying he wasn't at fault, but criminal charges were not brought against him. It's not like he was acquitted at trial when you felt he was guilty. He never went to trial for criminal charges.
Okay.
I mean, he was wrong in what.
He's not a criminal. He's not a convicted criminal. Then I'll just call him a criminal. I won't call him a convicted criminal. So.
Well, it's important to know that he's in the third year of his contract, and he's 29 years old right now. So he did push some of the salary back, but there's going to be a lot of money. And if he doesn't stay on the field, or if he doesn't perform like they think he will, I don't know if he can or not anymore. I mean, he did go 5. Jack is right. He did go 5-1 before he got injured. So there was that little streak that he had there. But still, I mean, Deshaun Watson was supposed to be a reason for these guys to make a Super Bowl run, not to go into the playoffs. And I don't know. The jury's out for me. I don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. He'll be 30 next year, and he still hasn't done nothing. He was good with Houston, but that is not potential. That's what was up to then, right? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. The Saints have 2 players.
Not a guy on my team ever. I don't care how good he is.
The Saints have two players that they're listed as bad contracts. One being Derek Carr, and the other one being, believe it or not, one of my favorite football players, Taysom Hill. He's going to get $9.2 million this year, $18 million 2025, and he only plays 50% of the snaps. They use him as basically to fill in and play running back, quarterback, and tight end, special teams, but he plays them all very well. So, I mean, this is what they're listing. I don't know if it's a bad contract or not. It seems like the Saints like to push contracts down the road so they can clear caps for other players they want to sign. They've been doing that for a few years. And with Derek Carr, looking at his numbers, he's got $23 million this year, $50 million next year, 2025. So I'll let the Saints fan talk a little bit about this. I mean, what's the deal over there, James? Why are the Saints continuing, to push the contracts further down and end up paying more in the end?
This is nothing new. We go back to Bobby Bonilla. I mean, they did the same thing in baseball for him. I mean, look, what it does is allows them to keep continuity. This is when Sean Payton was at the helm and Drew Brees was at the helm. They were allowed to keep core star players to make runs for Super Bowls. Obviously, they didn't get another one, but they did have successful years. So with that said, having someone like Taysom Hill, like you said, you like the player, I don't think it's a bad contract. I think it's a contract for a person that's a jack of all trades. He's a multi-utility player that can play running back, that can play tight end, that can play quarterback, even if he's just running the ball or he's going to throw here and there. Or look, $9 million per year, that's actually a steal for a player like that. I mean, and he's a unique player. How many players can you count like that on one hand in the league that are playing? Not many. And so in regards to Derek Carr, his contract, I mean, it's just like you said, it's just what they're paying players right now. I'm not saying Derek Carr is the great player. I'm not saying he's a bad player. He's a middle of the road player. But I'm interested in seeing how he plays. I've been watching minicamp and OTAs. I mean, obviously everybody looks good around that time, but we're starting a whole new offensive coordinator. I think that he'll do better this season, and especially if we have to go off the last 5 games that they played. He was 4-1, and his numbers were better out of all the top quarterbacks. He was either 1 or 2 in the last 5 games. So,
well, I mean, listen, $50 $50 million for Derek Carr in his last year's a lot of money, Jay. You know, I'm not
it's not guaranteed though. It's not guaranteed.
Well, I mean, we'll see what happens with them. They're gonna have to pay him one way or another. So let's welcome in the Philly sports guy. Happy Father's Day to all you guys. I haven't wished it to all of you yet. So I'm glad that you all joined us here on the National Streaming Sports Big Football Show and more. And happy Father's Day again to everybody out there. A former Eagle, Miles Sanders, Carolina. He only rushed for 432 yards last year, was replaced by another running back. Let me see. I think it was Hubbard, if I'm saying Chuba Hubbard. Sanders is due to make $7.5 million next year, 2024, dead money. So, listen, Sanders had a great run with the Philadelphia Eagles, better offensive line, better team. To me, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it, Keith? I mean, you're just playing with a better team than you did last year. Of course, you're going to rush for a lot less yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even close to the level of team he played for the year, the previous year. And Miles Sanders, I don't think is a guy that was ever going to be a number one back for anybody. He was splitting time even with the Eagles, and I think they ran that offense effectively, breaking up the workload that way. And, you know, a lot of guys think that when they can just go from that to being the man and it doesn't work out, or teams think they can, I should say, probably more than the guy. And I think it's, I'm not surprised he had that kind of year, and you know, now he's got to reevaluate the team, and he have to reevaluate going forward, or teams.
So let's get Pags in here. Pags, of course, I said Miles Sanders played for you. He was successful with you guys. Do you think that players maybe don't know how good they have it? I mean, I know they want to make more money. I get it. You're in Philadelphia. It's a big market, pretty popular guy. Everybody knew who Sanders was. I mean, you think you traded in, you know, a possible another run. I know the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe they want to get rid of him. I don't know. But I know he was a good back for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if he did have a choice to stay with the Eagles or go to Carolina, even though Carolina was offering him more money, wouldn't you think he would want to stay in the Philadelphia?
Actually, the Eagles didn't offer him another contract. Miles Sanders, as good of a back as he is, has a problem running in cold. He does not like the cold weather, does not like to get hit in the cold weather. And that Chicago game 2 years ago is what did him in. He was really, as players like to go, he was tipping, you know, like tiptoeing around. He was afraid to get hit. He was running out of bounds and things like that for that Chicago game. And it really put a bad taste in the Eagles' mouth. That being said, now that he just got cut by Carolina, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a reunion of the Penn State backfield and he actually comes back into Philadelphia and backs up Saquon Barkley, because you would probably be able to get him on the very cheap, and he would be a good change of pace back to Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, he did play well at Penn State after Barkley left. In fact, he had a great year at Penn State. That's why it's crazy to think that he doesn't like the cold, because he played in the cold at Penn State, and of course played in Philadelphia. So I mean, that's kind of crazy. Jack, the rookie quarterback for the Washington Redskins, gets a fully guaranteed $24.3 million, 4-year, 7 point. Let me get this right here. 4-year, fully guaranteed $24.3 million in a signing bonus also. So Jaden, that's the quarterback for the Commanders going forward. I mean, when you put your team in the hands of rookies, and we saw what Mac Jones, we saw with Zach Wilson, we saw with a lot of quarterbacks that go on a team that's not very good, it can ruin the career. And you worry about Jaden Daniels maybe starting that first year, maybe ruining his career.
No, they have a new coach, new owners. Everything is starting new. There's a fresh outlook. The fan base isn't expecting that much. They're excited about Jaden Daniels, and they're going to allow him to grow in that situation. And they don't have any viable backup for him to carry a clipboard for. Who do they have? Marcus Mariota there? Come on. I mean, so he's going to get to play. He's going to get to learn. And by all accounts, he's coming along really well. But don't we hear that about all these rookie quarterbacks? We hear that about Drake May of New England, how wonderfully all of a sudden he's coming along. And, you hear that all the time. But Washington, they drafted really well. And they're going to be a force in the Eastern Division in a couple of years, maybe 1 year from now even.
We'll see about that. I'm not sure. Keith, Atlanta.
James alluded to this earlier, right? Everybody looks great in shorts and a helmet. I mean, can we wait till they get hit? We got to wait till we get hit a few times before I think Drake May's coming along very well, by the way. So.
It's like the old thing. It's the old thing they asked Tommy Morrison about Sylvester Stallone in the movie Rocky V, in which he had a part, because Stallone had been a really good fighter in real life. They asked him. He said, well, he looked real good hitting the bag. Then again, everyone looks good hitting the bag.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's true. So the Eagles do not get charged with tampering. I didn't think they would. The Falcons do. I thought they would because there was some evidence of tampering going on with Kirk Cousins, Keith. But they only lost the 5th round, 2025 pick. They got fined. The club did $250,000. The GM gets fined $50,000. I mean, is that really going to make another team not tamper in the future?
No, they all tamper. I mean, again, I think if you're going to penalize one team, then penalize the Eagles. I'm sorry. I mean, they all do it. I'm not picking on those two teams. Everybody's talking. How can people? And I've said this before when we brought this up. How can teams not be tampering when, as soon as the signing period opens up, 25 guys sign? How can that be if you're not talking to them beforehand? I mean,
they call it legal tampering.
Well,
they call it legal tampering.
Guys, the boldest case of tampering ever in the NFL was when Don Shula was the head coach of the Baltimore Colts under contract to the Colts.
Yep.
And the Miami Dolphins signed him to be their head coach when he was under contract to the Baltimore Colts. So Pete Rozelle he allowed it to go through, and he gave the Colts a number 1 draft choice, and everyone drafted. Because once a guy wants to go elsewhere, how do you stop him? If you stop him from going elsewhere, what's going to be in that situation? Can you force him to stay at his old place?
I thought you were going to bring up the example of the Patriots tampering with Bill Belichick, taking him from the Jets when he was only the head coach for about 30 seconds on the podium there. So I thought that's what you.
I said the most boldest move because Shula was an established coach with the Colts.
Right.
Belichick was their head coach.
So you're talking about that time Parcells tried to screw Belichick, is how I remember that. But that's okay. That depends on your memory.
Well, yeah, the point of view there. Anyway, Patriots. Of course, they inducted Tom Brady, retired his number, and they're going to build a statue of Tom Brady out there in front of the stadium, I guess, Keith, is where they're going to set that up.
As they should. If Nick Foles gets a statue, and Tom Brady ought to get one, for crying out loud. Jeez, I mean, come on. It was a really good ceremony, and Brady was very classy in his remarks and made it clear to everybody, and they should put this to rest, that he would not have been the quarterback he became without Bill Belichick being his head coach. He said he would there's no other head coach he'd rather play for than Bill Belichick. Now, that may not have been the case after 20 years, but I get that. And he made it clear that, they didn't win 6 Super Bowls because of him or because of Bill. It was because of us. And I think that includes the rest of the team.
Wait, Keith. We hear the same thing years later. We heard it with Shaq about Kobe, where Shaq is saying, there was never any real tension with him and Kobe. We know there was. And we know there was with Brady and Belichick.
I didn't say there wasn't tension.
Say what they want now. Belichick wanted to move on from Brady on a couple of occasions when Brady still had a lot left in the tank.
Jack, you sometimes forget I don't know if you listen all the way through when I'm talking, because at the end I said, after 20 years.
I listen to you, Mac. I don't always listen to
After 20 years, that probably wasn't the case. He left because it was tension. I get it. I can't imagine working for Bill Belichick for 20 years. I mean, I get it's got a grate on you, but that doesn't mean that they didn't have a great relationship, winning 6 Super Bowls, and Belichick and his staffs were instrumental in Brady becoming who Brady became. And you can't dismiss that when we're talking about these two guys and who's responsible for what.
So will the statue look like? Will statue look like Touchdown Tom or Tom the Redeemer, or like which one is it going to be? I feel like this is going to be like a shrine to Jesus, the same way they have it in Notre Dame and down in Brazil. Like that's how, because they I don't remember New England winning any Super Bowls before him, and the way that they're going right now, I don't see them winning anytime real soon.
Well, not real soon. I agree with that. And maybe I think the statue should be him reaching for that Philly special play they've tried to run in the Super Bowl, like that he,
where that was a little bit of for who for what.
And next year, Tom Brady will be inducted into the Tampa Bay Buccaneer Hall of Fame, and we'll hear his speech, what he has to say.
he'll probably say the same thing about Coach. Well, who's the coach now?
Bruce Arians.
Thank you, Bruce Arians. Yeah, there's sleeping all night, so I don't know.
He would have never been great without him. All right, so Keith, it's 8:30. I know you got to get going to your show there on. Yeah, I mean you're having a great time. I see. That's why you didn't want to leave, but we got to kick you out so you can go do your thing on your show. Thanks for coming in, Keith. Again, happy Father's Day. Have a good one.
Same to you guys. Have a good Sunday.
You too.
No, Keith Engel for TGI Sports. Always a pleasure having him on. And Jack, a little Jets news. I don't know if you read this, but the Jets turned down a trade with the Rams for the number 10 pick for an 18 and 52. Instead, the Jets did their business with Minnesota, moving down one and receiving a 4th and a 5th round pick. So the Jets, who could have, I guess, got a couple more picks a lot earlier, turned that down, and they went ahead and got their
I'm
big
not
tap.
sure what they were offered. I didn't hear anything about what the Rams would have offered.
I just told you. I just read what they were.
No, I know what you told me, but we didn't hear anything at the time. I'm not sure as it's substantiated what the Jets would have done, what they wouldn't have done. It's and even the Vikings giving the Jets anything at all. The Vikings were only picking one spot behind the Jets, and right before the Jets were to make their pick, the Vikings, made a deal with the Jets. The Jets got a little draft capital to just move back one spot. The Jets weren't going to draft J.J. McCarthy, so I don't know why the Vikings were so nervous about it, unless they thought another team was going to swoop in at the last second, and they kind of panicked.
I'm not sure. I know what they were saying here was that that the original with the Jets turning down a trade with the Rams were interested in Brock Bowers and maybe with Fashun, and that's why they didn't make the trade.
Well, what would they have given the Jets?
I told see what Keith just said. He doesn't listen, right? I just told you what they.
Tell me, Mac. You didn't make it clear as far as I know. Let's hear.
I said the Jets turned down a trade for the number 10 pick for the 18th pick and the 52nd pick in the draft.
18th and 52nd. Okay, I mean.
The Jets. What that's saying is that the Jets didn't want to move that far down the board.
Right, they didn't want 8 slots. They wouldn't have gotten the offensive lineman they wanted. They wouldn't have gotten Bowers. I can understand them not moving down.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense, because if you are targeting an offensive lineman specifically when you have Aaron Rodgers at your helm, you cannot drop down eight spots, because it changes the remaining portion of your board specifically for those two. Like, even though you might have been able to get 2 offensive linemen for the one, you've got one guy specific. You may not have interviewed those guys or anything like that you would be picking at 18 and or 52, and that's probably the reason why.
Okay, so let's have a little fun, guys. Here we have the odds are out for how many wins teams will get. And we'll cover the NFC East, the AFC East. We'll throw in New Orleans and Carolina, even though Sonia's not here today. This way, she can say something later when she comes on Wednesday night or Sunday. So Philadelphia, the odds are that they're going to win 11 games right now. I just wanted to wonder. I know Pags is going to go over, but James, are you over or are you under with this as for amount of wins?
I'm over. I think the team is still intact. I mean, minus the departure of their center, their star center, I think they still have a really good opportunity to right the ship from what they had in regards to that debacle with their offensive coordinator and everything. I think Moore is probably going to help them, and the addition of Saquon Barkley will be a great addition for them. So I like them to be over.
How about you, Jack? Are you going over with the Eagles at 11?
To me, it's too early, and I don't want to be held to anything. For all I know, I'll pick the Eagles to win the Super Bowl when I sit down with my preseason picks, so I might pick them to be mediocre. This is with most teams. But if I had to guess 11 over, under, I would guess maybe under, because the Eagles finished the year terribly. I mean, they were awful. They were dreadful. And some of their key pieces, like Jason Kelce, retired, the heart and soul of their team. Hassan Reddick isn't there anymore. In a sense, they're rebooting. They're obviously not rebuilding. They look at themselves as Super Bowl contenders, and I guess rightfully so. But we don't know what Jalen Hurts is going to bring to the table next year. And there are too many little X factors. They might be great, or they might be mediocre. And 11-6 isn't easy in the NFL. But I said they'd have to go 12-5 to be over. And my guess is no, they wouldn't be over. They're more likely to go 10-7 than 12-5. If I had to guess right now, but that I might easily change my viewpoint when I sit down, for my final predictions.
Pags, I said you'd pick over. I'm just guessing. Would you say they would win more than 11 games this year, Pags?
It depends on whether it's 10.5 or 11.5. I actually think that it would almost be a push with a slight trend to go over. I think 11 wins is the number. Actually, I think that they could go 12. They could possibly get 13. On an outside chance, but the schedule being the way it is, that October is going to be really tough month. And it's going to be a tough month specifically because the end of September, they have 2 away games. And they have the bye. Then they go Cleveland. Then they have 2 away games. And it's because the Phillies are going to be expected to be doing a long postseason run as well. So they're going to be doing a lot of away games early in the season. And that could really affect them. That 7 away games in 11 or 12 weeks is a lot of away and a lot of travel time. Where the back end of the schedule is got 4 games at home out of 5. I think that they can make up some ground in there, but it's hard to say. I think, like I said, I think 11's the number with a slight hedge to go to 12.
Yeah,
I just want to ask this. This is just my perception. The Saquon Barkley addition is more than just getting a player that's performing on the field. I get the feeling it injected the whole franchise with a certain energy. It kind of reset things from last year, and like the franchise is really excited. Even Jason Kelce was getting all excited, and he retired, and he was talking like he was tempted to even come back now because Saquon Barkley's there.
Here's what I have for that. And here's the only way I can explain this. I don't want the balloon so full with Saquon Barkley that if he has an Aaron Rodgers moment and he only plays like 4 plays because of some freak accident and he winds up getting hurt, that the balloon is all around it and blows out of air. And I feel like that's what happened with the Jets last year, that there was so much hype about Aaron Rodgers that after that 4th play, the air just went out of the balloon and it went nuts. And they wind up only going 7 and 11 or 7 and 10. So I as much as I hear what you're saying and that there is a small injection of excitement due to Saquon Barkley, I still think that it's going to be a whole team, not just Saquon, and that they have to temper that excitement to actually real play on the field.
No, but I'd even ask an opinion of James on this, with the exception of the 49ers. When you look at Brown, Smith, and Barkley, no other team has a threesome like weapons like that. on offense the way the Eagles do in the NFL. No other team. I mean, only the 49ers a little more than the Eagles, and that's it.
Could it be argued that the
In
Rams
that
do?
team, yes.
Could it be argued that the Rams do?
Yeah,
If-
it could be.
Well,
Yeah, it could. If Cooper Kupp is fully healthy, yeah, it could.
and we have to see how the rookie running back does as well there too, because obviously you included running back position. So, but
Right.
asking about, I mean, that team is just talented, and Eagles. There was just some debacle in regards to how the offense ran, and I think there's something else going on internally. But I think that's going to be righted because you still can't argue how talented that team still is, and that's why I picked over 11 because of the talent potential that's there. So.
You know, Pags makes a point to that I think is really good here. Barkley is a great weapon. He does have an injury history. Something could happen to him, especially in his ankle. He's gotten high ankle sprains twice when he played with the Giants. Better offensive line probably won't happen. But the Eagles had a good running game last year when they ran the ball. There's no doubt. Swift was a good back last year. He might not be no Saquon Barkley, but he was a very good back. I think that the significance of Barkley this year is at the end of the season, and I think me and Pags talked about this before. At the end of the game, at the end of the season, they lost some games because they couldn't run out the clock, and they put the other team back on the field. The defense is a little tired. This year, they got that power back. Who can break it? Don't get me wrong. He can break it for 6 yards for a touchdown, but he can run up the middle and get you that 4, 5, 6 yards to control the ball at the end of the game.
And I think it was the utilization of the way they utilized Barkley, which gave him those high ankle sprains. He's a north-south runner, not around the ends. And it was the around the ends where he would get hurt most of the time. When he was doing in between the tackles in the box, he was being able to get through. That's where he broke away most of his plays. When he had to run around the edge, the speed of some defenders would be able to catch him. And him trying to juke out there in open space isn't really his game. He's more of a power back that's going to run you over and then run on top of you. And I think that's where the injury bug might not affect him so much in Philly as it did in New York. But again, we got to see. That obviously, I'm not the offensive coordinator, so.
But there's a little X factor too. I think the Eagles, more than any other team in the NFL, had designed running plays for the quarterback for Jalen Hurts. And with Saquon Barkley there, that's going to make Jalen Hurts more effective as a runner when they call him for an occasional running play.
Yeah. The RPOs will the RPO game will go up immensely. Just the RPO game itself. I mean, you're going to get receivers open. You're going to get tight ends open just for that faith from Barkley and the threat of Hurts running. I mean, it's going to open up a few new doors. That's why I got the Eagles going over 11 wins too. I think now they can run the clock out at the end of the game, and they're going to rely on their defense at the end to hold off some teams. Dallas is at 10.5 wins, guys. They still don't have a running back. Really, I mean, they got a running back, but not a significant power running back. Their defensive line a little iffy still. So the linebacker group still a little iffy. I think Dak Prescott's going to be signed. I think their offense overall will be good. Their defense to me still has some questions, and they're 10.5. I'm going to take them going under. I think they'll get 9. Maybe they'll make 10 wins, but I don't think they get more than 10.5 wins, guys. What do you think, James?
I'm agreeing with you. I just don't see any significant moves in the offseason by Dallas to have make me change my mind. It's particularly at the running back position. I mean, you give me the early Zeke from when he was a rookie and his second year. I mean, man, yeah, of course I would give them over, but man, the running back position is totally undervalued, but it shouldn't be this undervalued. I think it's pretty bad in Dallas. I don't see anybody that lights the charts up that says they should win over 10 games. Defensively, they look okay. They look decent. I don't see the cornerback room looking pretty good. Linebacking core is okay. But you can see just what happened in their last playoff game was pretty telling for where they are right now. And I don't see I think teams are going to be ready for him, specifically not having a good running back to give you, like you said, Saquon Barkley will give you 5 or 6 yards to give you that first down. I don't see that in Zeke. So I give them maybe 10 games specifically.
Jack, you think they'll go over 10?
If I had to guess, I think they'd go under. I mean, they're a real wild card, the Cowboys. I mean, it's easy to forget what a good year they had last year. And they just came up flat against the Packers in the playoffs, got off to a terrible start. But the Packers came an eyelash from beating the 49ers in the playoffs. The 49ers needed a last drive of the game to pull it out. And then the 49ers, just missed beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So if you take it in that account, I mean, the Cowboys basically just have to hold serve. But will they? And like James says, they don't really have a running game that puts any fan to anyone. And but they have some, they have some great players still on the team. Their lack of activity in the offseason was puzzling because everyone has this image as Jerry Jones being impulsive. They have to do this, they have to do that. They really didn't do much. I mean, the only thing we could surmise is they were thinking of the big contracts, a Lamb, Prescott, down, late on. But and Micah Parsons, but it's so hard to get a read on the Cowboys, more so than most teams.
Pags, did you agree? Are they gonna win less or more than 10.5?
So I tried to stick by my saying last year that I thought that the Cowboys were going to implode. I feel like that I'm still riding that horse. I think that they implode this year. I think that
you were wrong, Pags. They didn't implode last year, and you want to take credit a year later that they might implode. You were wrong.
Am I going to talk, or are you going to talk over me, Jack?
I got it correct.
Pipe down over there. So yeah, I feel like I was a year behind. I think that the fact that they don't have any money, that they weren't able to pick up anybody of any real value, the fact that there's a little bit of dissension in those ranks from Micah Parsons always talking about the Eagles and stuff like that. I feel like that they lost some of the glue that was helping keep everything together, like Van Der Esch. Like there was a reason why they would put him like duct tape and bubble gum on him and send him back out there, because he was actually one of the leaders of that defense. And the problem is that he's not there anymore, and I feel like that there was nobody to replace him because there was no money because of bad decisions that Jerry Jones has made throughout. And I think that eventually that it's all those hens are coming home to roost, and that's what's happening this year. They're all going to come home to roost. I got them at like 5 or 6 wins, and we see Bill Belichick, the coach next year.
That is a bold pick, Pags.
It is.
5
it
12
is.
6 and 11. It could happen. I wouldn't be flabbergasted that the wheels would come off completely. We kind of see where you're coming from in a sense. I think Cowboy Nation did deflate it because of the lack of activity in the offseason. Like the Eagles are constantly making moves, and the fan base is energized. I don't think the Cowboy fan base is energized.
I mean, we had 6 picks. We wound up getting 8 players and 4 more picks. And the Cowboys got Ezekiel Elliott.
So let's take a quick break here. I happen to agree with you guys. I think they'll be less than 10.52. Quick break.
I had to come on early today because I have to get out. I have a date with my children for Father's Day.
There you go.
Happy Father's Day to you guys, but I'm going to duck out of here.
All right, Pags, you have a good one. We'll take a quick break right now.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
Hello, this is Paul Semendinger, award-winning author and the host of the Dr. Sem Yankee Show and the Start Spreading the News podcast. And you are watching The Big Football Show, the very best football show in the entire world. And it's here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Enjoy.
Thank you, Dr. Paul, and thank you to the Sports Huddle Network for having us on there Sunday mornings. We appreciate that. Again, happy Father's Day to everyone out there. Jack stepped away. He'll be right back. So let's finish up the NFC East. I don't know if we got enough time to do all the teams I wanted to. Maybe I'll save it for next week because we still got some of the sports we got to get to. James, the New York Giants are at 6.5 for win total this year. Of course, we know that last year was a terrible year for the Giants as they kind of dropped back. Daniel Jones gets hurt, all the problems. I don't want to go over them again. They did make a comeback at the end of the year. They did end up beating the Eagles at the end to help the Eagles kind of slide off the map there. It looked like they had a little something going there. They didn't give up. They think they won 4 out of the last 6 games or something like that. So they did have a run at the end of the year. Listen, Saquon Barkley's gone. Daniel Jones looks like he might be the starter. He's getting better as spring training goes around from what I'm reading. They did pick up Khalid Neighbors. They did pick up a nice pass rusher from Carolina with Burns. So their defensive line should be a little bit better. What are your thoughts? Now, remember, they're not playing the best schedule in the world. They're not playing the Eagles schedule. They're not even playing the Cowboys schedule. They're playing what the 3rd or 4th best team in the league would play. So 6.5 is the number. What do you got, James?
I got him at 7 or 8 games. I think 6.5 is a little under, especially with the moves that they made. They lost Saquon Barkley, but they still got a serviceable running back in Montgomery, I believe. Yeah. So I don't think.
Singletary.
Excuse me. Yeah. Singletary. I think he's a serviceable running back. And in regards to their defense, yes, adding Burns will help them. In regards, they already have really good players already on the defense, so he's adding to the mix. So I look for them to be a little more dominant. So that should help with the schedule, and it should give. I think it'll help get them more opportunities for the offense. I think the biggest key is what is Daniel Jones going to do? I think that makes or break the team. And adding a weapon like Malik Neighbors, obviously he'll be a rookie, but it's obviously what an immense talent he is. And so that should help them specifically. And hopefully that'll get Daniel Jones, a little more opportunity to build up his numbers. And hopefully he can stay off his back with the offensive line that they have. But I think they'll be over 6.5.
Well, again, I don't want to make no more excuses for Daniel Jones about being sacked. I know he's been hit a lot, but so are a lot of quarterbacks. They did lose a couple defensive backs from last year, starting Xavier McKinney went to the Packers. Another of the cornerbacks left the Giants also. So they're going to be young again at cornerback. Different defensive coordinator this year. So I really don't know. What is your thoughts? 6.5 is the number, Jack.
Yeah, we're in the hope business in the NFL, with the exception of the New England Patriots, who everyone is acknowledging is rebuilding, isn't going to win many games. Every team in the NFL, we're thinking they're going to be better than they actually are, because we're in the hope business. We're looking at the Washington Commanders saying, oh, they're an up-and-coming team. I said it a little while ago. The Giants were 6-11 last year. We're thinking, oh, what a good defensive line. They got Burns and, et cetera this year. Malik Neighbors, if Daniel Jones stays healthy, they could win 10 games. We're even thinking, perhaps. But you're thinking that every single team. But once in a while, these teams do jump up. Look what the Houston Texans did last year. But chances are even that team's going to regress and maybe take a step backwards. They were 6-11. Will they go 7-10? If I had to guess over on night, say they could go 7-10. They might go 8-9. I mean, it's all a wild card with the Giants. They could be 4-13, or they can be 11-6. I mean, who knows? But my guess is they'll lose more than they'll win. At this point.
I would agree. I would think they might win 7, maybe 8 games at the most. I mean, if anything more than that, I'd be surprised. I think with Dallas falling back a little bit may give them a chance to maybe make up a couple of games. But I'm with you, Jack. I mean, I there's a lot of unknowns, especially on a team that it seems to be rebuilding all the time. I know this is, the head coach's DeBall's 3rd year. And this normally is a make or break season for coaches. If they don't get it together by the 3rd year, normally they're replaced. So I think he's going to be coaching best he can. I don't know. I mean, you got Belichick waiting out there. They're all worried about Belichick, Cowboys, the Giants. Everybody's worried about Belichick out there. I don't know. I mean, I think they'll do a little bit better. I don't
think they're going to detour to Belichick for a couple of reasons. He's going to be 1 year removed from coaching in the NFL. He might not even want to come back, Belichick, after tasting the good life for 1 year. No one considers that. Number 2, Joe Shine, the Giant GM, and Brian DeBall are very close. That's his hand-picked guy. Joe Shine could be in control with Brian DeBall there. And the Giant ownership is very understanding. They don't push to replace head coaches unless they absolutely have to. They look for reasons to keep coaches. Look, they didn't want to move on from Saquon Barkley. He was a favorite son of Giant ownership. But it's what Joe Shine wanted to do, and they put their faith in him. And if they went to Bill Belichick, it would diminish their GM. So it would shake up the organizational structure. And everyone's so fascinated with Bill Belichick, which they should be, of course. But Bill Belichick increases the value of certain franchises and that he could make them a little more relevant, but not in the case of the Giants. The Giants have a magic name, and they're going to be relevant no matter, who the head coach is.
Well said, but there's still that. Me and Jack talked about this, James, before. There's still that all-time wins record out there that would take him a couple years maybe to catch Shula. I say he's coming back. I think he's one of those coaches that you actually have to kick out, and no other team would want him for him not to come back and coach. You see what happened with the Falcons. I mean, why would you want to go coach the Falcons? Because he thought he could do it. He could turn around the Atlanta Falcons. I think he's seen as a Cowboys replacement for McCarthy. Him and the Giants have a history, and maybe the history is not that good now. He said he wouldn't coach for the Giants, but a lot of things are said in heat. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think Belichick will be in the NFL again. If not this year.
The Giants, you make a good point. If Belichick was lukewarm at any point to coming back to coaching, if the Giant job opened up, he said in the past that he had his best times, with the Giants. I mean, he's so fond of the memories with LT, Harry Carson, coaching those guys. I mean, he feels still a part of him as part of the Giant family still. Can you imagine Belichick wins 1 Super Bowl as a head coach of the Giants, and he decides he has a choice to go into the Hall of Fame as a Giant or Patriot? Not that head coaches pick one or the other. And he picked the Giants. I mean, that would actually be conceivable.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he would probably. If you had 20 years with the Patriots, I think.
But I like to piggyback off what.
Go ahead.
I like to piggyback off what Jack just said. Somebody like Belichick, as competitive as he is, it's out there that he's never won without Brady. He's going to want to win. At least I think he's going to want to come back and win one without Brady. So, I mean, going back to the Giants, that would be a bad idea if the situation with Dave doesn't work out. But it's just, again, he's got a break right now, but I think he's coming back. I think he's coming back like Max said.
James, I think he's maybe somewhat past all that talk. Belichick himself now says, of course I couldn't win without Tom Brady. Who could? I need Tom Brady to win. and people respect Belichick's contribution now. And they're not saying, well, he didn't win without Tom Brady. Belichick is now starting to be revered again as one of the all-time great coaches. And Brady himself says, well, I couldn't have won without Belichick developing me into the quarterback that I was. So, I mean, I don't go for that, necessarily. When you talk about legacies, Don Shula is considered one of the greatest coaches of all time, and rightfully so. He holds the win record. He never won a Super Bowl with Johnny Unitas and Dan Marino as his quarterbacks. I mean, that's a fact. And no one holds that against Don Shula.
I know.
That's fair.
No, I mean, Don Shula did one of the seasons. I mean, listen. I mean, I think some coaches retire, come back. You saw what Bill Parcells did. I think it's in their blood. It's hard to say goodbye. I think Belichick comes back. For the record, maybe something to prove with Brady. I don't know, but I just think for that record, that's the only thing that's out there for him now, right? I mean, he's won more Super Bowls than any other coach, and the last record he's got to win is the most games. I mean, I don't know about losses. They may win that record too. Who knows? But the most losses by a coach too. But we'll see what happens.
Guys, you need 2 seasons to break it. 2 seasons to break it. And when you get to be his age, do you really want to go back to the rigors of coaching? Maybe he does, if he still is anxious to coach. But my argument why he might not, he's going to get a taste of the good life for 1 year. 1 year where he can be involved in football in different capacities as a consultant. He's valued. He's revered wherever he goes. Okay, he's not going to be forgotten. If Bill Belichick walks into a room, all eyes are going to be on him. He's not going to be forgotten. He's always going to be a compelling personality. He could get a job in the booth to do whatever. He's going to be on the Manning cast this year, I believe, with the Mannings contributing, talking football. And my thing is, he might not want to come back, even if the record is out there, like 2 years out of his life, is it really worth it? And if a team that hires Belichick, are they going to want a coach for just a couple of years? Oh, when he breaks the record, he's gone. Is that what they really want?
If you can bring him to the promised land, they'll take it, Jack.
But if they're that good, Matt James, if they're that good as is, they're not looking for replacement. And if you could bring them to the promise, and maybe the Cowboys would be a fit because they're usually always relevant. And Jerry Jones is an older owner. He might say, okay, let's hire him. If he leaves after a couple of years, we understand the situation. But teams that are looking to build something, are they really going to want to hire Coach Belichick?
It's a good point. I mean, I'll give
that
point. Let's talk a little bit about Jack's right in his wheelhouse. Even he's very, very smart when it comes to all sports, but of course boxing is his main thing. Big fight last night. There were a couple fights, but the biggest had to be Davis against Martin, Jack, and Davis comes up on top.
Yeah, Davis with an 8-round stoppage. I thought it would be the type of fight. It would be an even fight after 8 rounds. Then Davis would knock him down and completely dominate the last few rounds and win a wide decision. And Martin did get off to a good start. He won the first 3 rounds, and it didn't fluster Tank Davis at all. That's been the blueprint in his fights. He's not concerned with giving up some of the early rounds. He always measures an opponent, breaks him down, and he's a devastating one-punch puncher. And he got to Martin, a very good young prospect, knocked him out in the 8th round. And maybe we should give Tank Davis a little more respect in the pound-for-pound listings. We talk about Crawford, Inoue, Usyk now, and no one throws Tank Davis's name into the top 3. Maybe we should consider that. I'm going to talk with my co-host on Glove Fist, Frank Laterzo, about giving Davis a little more consideration. We're going to talk about it tomorrow night, on the show. But a great win for Tank Davis. He was incarcerated for a month and a half, and he'd been under house arrest and hadn't really followed the rules with that. And he'd been off. So you kind of wondered, how he would be in this fight. It was a little bit of a comeback fight, but he was in great shape, performed well, and is one of the top fighters pound for pound in the sport. Maybe he should. And if you said he was the best fighter pound for pound in the sport, you could make that argument, even though most people put Terrence Crawford a little ahead of him.
Yeah. So he caught him with an uppercut left hook. I saw the highlights of it. The guy was just, what a shot. He was just kind of laying against the ropes when he hit him. So good for Davis. Martin I did read where Martin was battling him well. Martin says he kind of didn't move enough at the end and he kind of slowed down a little bit or whatever. Listen, Davis stood there, took the shots, came in and caught him. And that's basically what happened. So I don't know. You also had David Benavidez fight last night for the light heavyweight championship. He outpoints Alexander. I'm gonna give my best shot.
Bodzic. Benavidez won by a very wide margin, a decision, and he looked good, but you kind of wonder whether he lost a little bit of momentum, because when the guy's nicknamed the Monster, you want a stoppage at some point. Ought to better be stopped, Bodzic, at the end of their fight some time back. And it was a good performance by Benavidez, but you wanted him to build on his momentum. He didn't lose any momentum with, beating a good fighter decisively. But something about it, you wonder, is his power being brought up from the super middleweight to the light heavyweight division? And yesterday, it didn't look like it was fully brought up. He didn't get the stoppage. So you wonder how devastating he's going to be as a puncher, as a light heavyweight, to fight in that class. And all the talk about him fighting Canelo Alvarez, let's forget about it at this point. Benavidez would have to get down to his old weight of 168 pounds, and he's a big guy. And I know to get a mega fight, he would do that, but the answer is why. His future is as a light heavyweight to fight the Bivol Beterbiev winner. That would be a tremendously attractive fight. So let's forget the Canelo fight and focus on that fight for David Benavidez.
All right. Yeah, listen. Good for Benavidez. I know he takes a lot of time between fights. It's CCC too anyway. And to add another good fighter to the light heavyweight, category is good for boxing. So good for him. So let's get into the NBA a little bit. Luka Doncic kind of quiets the critics for one game anyway. Plays a lot better defensively. Looked like his leg didn't bother him as much. He drops 29 points as they win, and they kind of just blow the Boston Celtics out of the arena, 122-84. They're going back to Boston. I think Boston really took the day off. They just didn't look like they wrestled like they did the first three games. The team wasn't passing the ball like it did the first three games. Give Dallas some credit for it. I do. I just don't think Dallas has a shot at beating the Celtics 3 games in a row. In fact, I think the Celtics wrap it up next game. What do you think, Jay?
I agree with you. I just think that Boston just came out flat. They probably wanted to go back home. I'm not saying nobody wants to lose. Let me clear that up. Nobody wants to lose. But Dallas, this is their last after. What else are they supposed to do? Just fold? And I think they did what they were supposed to do at home. They're going to go back to Boston, and Boston's going to close it out. You can't. I just don't see Dallas winning a 7-game series, 4 games. They got to win 4 straight. It's just not going to happen. I give them 2 games at the most. My pick was 6-2 Boston, but I just don't see Dallas. You allow for Boston to have an off game, and they're going to come out and just light them up at home, and the series will be over, and Boston be the NBA champions.
I had picked.
If you're embarrassed, it's different than getting barely beat, right? And that kind of fires the other team up a little bit. You really made them look bad. If Dallas won by, say, 3 or 4 points, I could see Dallas maybe winning in Boston. But after blowing a team out like that, I think Boston has a lot of pride, and they come back hard, Jack.
I think pride has nothing to do with it in the game 5. Look, the Celtics beat them 3 in a row before. They had a bad game. Getting blown out doesn't hurt their pride. To them, it's a throwaway game. I'm sure their mindset is, who cares whether we lost by, 30 points or 4 points. It doesn't matter. It's just one game. We're going home. This reminds me a little bit, slightly only, of the Chicago Bulls Seattle Supersonics series years ago with Michael Jordan, when the Bulls were up 3-0 and everyone was saying it was all over. They'd win 4 straight. That was a very good Seattle team that won 64 games in the regular season. And all of a sudden, Seattle wins 2 games in a row. But the difference was the playoff format was set up where Seattle won the 2 games in Seattle, and then they went to Chicago. But all of a sudden, it was a little nervous for Chicago that they better close it out at home. But if Boston should somehow lose game 5, they go to Dallas for game 6. And of course, Boston can easily win there. But all of a sudden, imagine the energy that not only the teams are going to have, not only the Mavericks are going to have, but fans all over. They're going back to Dallas, and we could actually even things up in Dallas. And that would be a true wake-up call for the Celtics. I don't think losing game 4 was that big of a wake-up call to them, because their mindset is, we're going home. We just had a bad game. We're going to be ourselves. We're going to play hard. We're going to wrap it up at home. But if they should lose game 5, all of a sudden it's a series. The reality is going to set into the Celtics. There's a chance we could actually lose this. They could be in store for the biggest embarrassment in NBA history. They're going to start thinking, if we muff this series. So if they lose game 5, the fun begins. The fun begins. I don't think they're going to lose game 5, and I picked the Celtics to win in 7, but it's hard to envision the Mavs winning the next 2 games and taking it to a 7th game.
I agree. And speaking of fans, and we give the Philadelphia fans a hard time all the time about the way their fans react to things. So they were having a watch-along party at the TD Garden Arena, and Celtic fans were fighting each other. They were brawling against each other during the game. So, I mean, it happens all over the place. Philadelphia gets picked on a lot, but I know the Boston fans, in New England when the Patriots play, and these guys can be pretty rowdy too.
Well, they were mad. Listen, they were a bit upset, the Boston fans, when the Red Sox played the Phillies recently, and the Philly fans invaded Fenway Park. There were too many of them there, which is kind of ironic with Philly fans, because when the Sixers played the Knicks, they were complaining that the Knicks fans were invading Philadelphia. Where did these people get all this money to travel? I guess that's their vacations, following their team.
Yeah, there's a lot of money out there that gets thrown around to go to games and different ballparks and that. I don't know. I guess they get group discounts or rates or something. I don't know, Jack. You bring in 2,000 people, I guess you get a better rate than just me, you, and James going to a game. So anyway, So all fans can be jerks. Charles Barkley's retiring from TNT supposedly after this year. He says he's retiring from TV. I don't know if that's true or not. I imagine he'll get a couple offers to go on some other networks. And, I've already pitched, a case of beer a week for him. I don't know if he'll pick that up or not and come on our network, but we'll see.
He's become a very respected analyst over the years, taking positions on a number of viewpoints, not scared to speak his mind. When he first got the job, I thought Charles Barkley, going back from his playing days, was a big blowhard. But, he's turned into a serious individual, and very thoughtful on issues and not scared to say what he thinks. But he doesn't do it in a boastful way. He'll call people out on things. He's calling out his own network, TNT, with how they're handling things. He was pretty annoyed even at ESPN's coverage of Dan Hurley. Says the NBA playoffs are going on. I mean, the championship round, and we hear Dan Hurley at the top of it, not, the teams itself. He speaks his mind, and in a good way, I think.
I agree with you. I think he's fun. I think he's a little bit controversial by not what he says, but the stances he takes. Because I mean, you could argue either way. He's not like a blowout like Jack is saying. He just says things to get ratings. I think he really believes in what he's saying, and that's why he can argue his points so well. So
well, he'd be great on the ESPN type of format. Reportedly, they want to sign Shannon Sharp, who I think's been outstanding since he's come to ESPN, to a long-term deal, and maybe Stephen A. Smith would have some nighttime thing in entertainment, even for ESPN. You get the feeling with Stephen A. Smith, he would be ready to leave sports with the right opportunity. If he could be another Jimmy Kimmel type, I get the feeling he would jump at that.
You think so? You think?
I do. If the money is there, of course.
Yeah. I'm not laughing because of the idea. I'm laughing just trying to picture him being a talk show host.
He'd be very good at it. No, he'd be very good at it. I think.
Maybe so.
James, you got to jump in there, James. You could jump right in at any time when Mac and myself are disagreeing. We need someone to break the tie.
Look, only thing I'm going to say about that, and I'll leave it alone. I just think that Charles Barkley, Shaq, Kenny, and Ernie had one of the best chemistries I've ever seen for a panel to have with basketball. I mean, and they just seemed to be, I mean, they were lighthearted. They were just themselves. They chimed in, they joked on each other, they ragged on each other a lot. It's going to be tough to see that go away because I watch all the time. And I think Charles is a bit emotional about it, so he doesn't want to play, go for anywhere. But I think somebody gives him a big, huge contract, like you guys said, he's going to go take that. But right now, I think he's just emotional about the situation. Now, I get it because they didn't fight hard for the NBA to keep it there, and who knows what's going to happen. But he said regardless of what happened, he's still done after 24, 25.
I have a feeling he makes
We'll see.
a comeback. Like fighters announced their retirement, I think he makes a comeback. But Charles Barkley's a lot of years removed from being a player, but he understands, and this is a part that players who become analysts don't like. You have to be critical at times. Even when you're not being critical, even when you're being honest, Charles Barkley came under big-time criticism from Klay Thompson, who said how he was hurt his feelings, and other players like Draymond Green, I think Steph Curry, were critical of Charles Barkley because he said Klay Thompson's not the player he used to be. Not that he's still not a good player. And Charles Barkley's saying, it was because of injuries and this and that. He's just not the same player. And of course, Klay Thompson isn't the same player he used to be. But Klay Thompson took it like, I'm working so hard to come back from this injury. I need more love than I'm getting from a guy like Charles Barkley. And Charles Barkley became a villain because of that.
Yeah.
And I get what you're saying because he lost a friendship in Michael Jordan by his criticisms of Michael Jordan and his coaching and GM. And Jordan didn't like that. He felt like he could come to him personally and told him that. But Charles Barkley's rebuttal was, I'm just doing my job. Friends or not.
Charles Barkley said, how can I criticize other players but give my best friend a pass? Okay? And Charles Barkley was absolutely correct. And Jordan was being a first-class jerk. If you're that close to a guy as a friend, you're going to cut him off completely because he's criticizing how you're doing as an owner. And Jordan was a miserable owner of the Charlotte Bobcats. Why is everyone giving him a pass? He was a disaster. People attack James Dolan whenever they can, the Knicks owner. What was Jordan with the Bobcats? He was terrible. He didn't draft well. They didn't make good moves. The Bobcats waffle, and it didn't seem like Jordan had that passion as an owner. We talk about what a great competitor Jordan is. What was his competitiveness as owner of the Bobcats? It was hardly that, seemed.
Yeah, he was terrible. That's no doubt. There's no doubt. But I guess when you are as famous and as successful as Jordan was as a basketball player, people think he's the greatest of all time. It's, a lot of people get upset when you criticize people like that at all, which is wrong. So, I mean, that's that's the way it is, I guess, for anybody in the public eye. But Jordan, I mean, you got to admit, Jordan Jack is like a god to some people when it comes to basketball. And they just revere him. And no matter what he does, they're not gonna complain or say anything bad about the guy, which is a shame. So anyway, MLB, we have an umpire getting disciplined for violating the gambling rules. While he appeals it, they're not releasing the details of it. According to what I read, he did not. There was no potential manipulations or game compromise. Listen, we don't know that first. That's just what the MLB is saying. Of course, the umpires union is very strong. But if he is found to have been betting on games at any MLB games, any baseball games, is he held to the same standard? No.
Well, we don't know.
I disappeared. Go ahead, Jack.
I guess, James, you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you pretty good.
Okay, good, Mac. Okay. We don't know what did this umpire do or didn't do. And there's so much hypocrisy with the gambling. Bernie Kosar, Mac, the great Cleveland Brown quarterback of the past, one of the biggest icons I'd say right now, Bernie Kosar is the biggest living icon in Cleveland Brown history. Correct me if I'm wrong. At this moment, he was a radio analyst for the Browns, had that job, and he got let go because a talk show host or something had him on the air and provoked him into making a bet. What Bernie Kosar said was for something like $19,000. Bernie Kosar said, if I win, all the money's going to charity. And it didn't affect anything, but the Browns say, well, they have a policy, so now you lose your job. I mean, come on. And what are we going to hear on the Browns telecast or the NFL telecast about all these bets you can make? And then they're going to say, well, bet responsibly. Well, Bernie Kosar bet responsibly. All the money's gone to charity. And it was for a small amount, and it's provoked into now Bernie Kosar is suing supposedly the station that provoked them. Come on. There's got to be some common sense in these things from time to time.
Yeah, listen, I agree with that, but this is an umpire, and if it's a player in baseball, you can say anything you want about there's gambling sites all over the place. Yeah, they're sponsors. Yeah, the rules in baseball are simple. You don't bet and you don't gamble on baseball. And we, as you said, Jack, and as I said, we don't know the details, but it looks like he bet on baseball. They wouldn't be disciplining him, right?
But what did he do? What did he do? I want to know.
That's what we got to find out during the appeal. Major League Baseball is not going to release the details. As I said, he's represented by the umpires union, but they did take action to discipline him. So there's something that happened with gambling and probably on baseball. So that's all I'm doing, assuming. All I'm saying, if that's true, I don't care if he bet on different games that he didn't ump or whatever. If that's true, is he held to the same standards as any baseball player, James? What do you think?
If it's true, he should be held to the fullest, especially at his position, because who knows the details of what he's done. I mean, and if it's specifically on games that he's judged. So, I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one to really call because there's no information out there. But if we have to assume that it was on baseball, he should be held accountable to the fullest.
That's why
Jack, wait a minute. So he has been held out of umpiring since 2023. So something happened. So they are disciplining him. So if it's that bad that they're not letting him ump anymore, and again, why MLB won't release the details? Maybe they get sued by the union. I don't know.
Maybe MLB can't ban them like they would a player. Maybe I guess they don't have that control because of the umpires union, and maybe they don't want the lawsuit, so they're keeping it quiet. But it seems like first-class hypocrisy in this whole thing. I mean, I hate to harping back to what went on with Pete Rose, but on reflection, it's kind of ridiculous at this point with Pete Rose banned the Hall of Fame, this and that, while baseball's advertising betting themselves now.
I think everybody agrees.
But it just shows you the difference in certain sports. Like years ago, Pete Rozelle, he banned Alex Karras and Paul Hornung, two superstars in the NFL, for 1 year for allegedly betting. 1 year. Okay, it wasn't like a lifetime ban. I don't know what the NFL would do now. Let's say Patrick Mahomes, for argument's sake, bet on another two teams, and he bet like $10,000, not a, which is chump change for Patrick Mahomes, and he was going to give it to charity. What would the NFL do? They wouldn't ban him for life, anything. They'd probably suspend him maybe 4 games or something like that for making that type of bet. That's what and I'm saying this sarcastically, that's what I love about my sport, boxing. A fighter could show his betting slip before the fight, and the fight's still going to take place, and he's not going to be suspended. True. Like Ryan Garcia, when he fought Devin Haney, reportedly bet $2 million on himself at 6-1 odds, and we see that all the time. And no one talks about, well, you could bet against yourself. What happens if he lost the fight? He could clean up. I mean, that could happen easily in boxing. A fighter could just bet against himself. Jake LaMotta supposedly threw a fight. He did throw a fight. He did it so he could get a title shot later on. He wasn't banned for life. I mean, there was a short suspension, and he was allowed to come back. No, betting's a serious thing because there are a lot of implications. And if you bet against your team to win, bet against your team to lose, and then you throw a game. I mean, that's a serious issue. But sometimes the issues aren't as serious. But with this umpire, like we were just saying, I'd love to know what exactly went on, because if it was a game he umpired and he bet on that, and he was calling balls and strikes, for example, and influencing the outcome, that would be totally unacceptable.
I would agree. Would it be unacceptable if he was friends with the home plate umpire in another game and he placed a bet on one of the teams? Would that be unacceptable?
Well, yeah, it would be unacceptable, but you have to look at every case, I think, individually, how it could affect the outcome of games. When I first heard about Pete Rose betting on his team to win, my original reaction was, that's not so bad. And it's not, but it actually is. And even Pete Rose acknowledges it now, because you might use a reliever who might need an extra day of rest. And you might throw all your resources into that game, not thinking of things over the long haul. So I could kind of understand it from that perspective. I didn't understand it when I first heard it, but after it was explained, you become a little more understanding. But again, we come back to James Mack. What exactly went down with that umpire? Until we know, it's hard to form, a solid opinion.
Right, I agree with that. It's just when a player bets, I don't know if they appeal. I don't even know if they did. I would imagine they appeal, but you still know the details. That's telling me the umpire union might even be stronger than the baseball union. That's incredible.
Could I tell you something? There's indirect betting, which I don't like, and I want to hear what James has to say about this, in the form of bonuses. Last year with the Ravens, Jadeveon Clowney got a sack, which allowed him to get his bonus, his extra money at the end of the year, and he was celebrating. It was, I think this, if I'm not mistaken, was the second half of the game. Now, the Ravens were guaranteed their spot in the playoffs, okay? And I could argue, to keep Clowney in the game so he has a chance to get his bonus, isn't that a form of like gambling? Normally they would rest the guy. So you're gambling in the form of bonuses too. You're betting in a certain sense, like you're betting on yourself. And sometimes the coaches keep you in longer than you should.
I don't know, because what if he doesn't get the sack, even if he, I mean, I get what you're saying in regards to betting
by keeping him in, maybe. So he could collect his bonus money, that, you know, collect on his indirect bet. It's not called a bet, it's called a bonus. He's betting on himself to get X amount of sacks, so he signs the contract for that.
But I get the fact that this is known between team and owners. The contract is public knowledge, so we all know. The problem is with the gambling and the other stuff. Nobody knows but this particular individual, maybe the league and everything else. Obviously, we're not knowing anything else about what's going on potentially. But like Max said, this guy is suspended since 2023, and so something likely happened. We just don't know how egregious it may be and how can things be overturned. But and going back to Jadeveon Clowney, I get what you're saying. I get it, but at least the knowledge is there. We all know that the potential is there. Like you said, the boxer's waving the ticket. It's definitely there. We know what's going on with you, and you're not going to get suspended for this. Or should you be suspended for this? No, because you're definitely trying to obtain what's available to you, what's rightfully given to you, if you can, if you can get the numbers. So yeah, I don't see anything wrong with that. It's just, this is just so ambiguous in regards to the situation. And gambling as a whole, how like you said, it's hypocritical for leagues to really shun down. Every case could be different, to shut down gambling amongst players and officials, but they're making hand over fist with the amount of money that they're promoting of gambling and in its totality.
Good morning, Sonia. Thank you for Happy Father's Day. Wish you're here with us today. But we're talking about gambling, and I'm going to stick with it for a second, because we keep saying, well, gambling sponsors the NFL. Well, so does alcohol. But if a player, if he gets in a drinking and driving accident, we're not blaming the alcohol sponsorship on the NFL, are we? We're not doing that. If there's a guy that dies of a heart attack for eating fast food, maybe that's one of the reasons. We're not blaming the NFL for the NFL. We're not saying they're hypocritical for having them on. I think, listen, we take away the choice of a person so much today. We blame everybody else but the person who's making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, decides he wants to gamble. He knows the rule. He knows the rule. It's not a secret.
Matt,
that's not a secret.
That's the abuse of alcohol. That's the abuse of alcohol when you're talking about. People drink all the time and don't abuse it.
Isn't it the abuse of gambling when you're saying, listen, they both can be addictions, right? So aren't you saying that, well, it's okay in one instance, but it's not in the other? It's not a secret, James. If it was a secret, if it was like, well, we're not going to tell you gambling is against the rules, and then we're gonna kick you out. Okay, I get it. They know. They're told that from day one. So to keep, and I get it. I don't disagree with you guys totally, but it's, let's blame the person. Let's stop blaming the NFL. Let's stop blaming the game. The person made that decision, which he knew was wrong, and he knows he could get suspended, but yet he still does it. How can you leave the individual out of it? I don't know. Pete Rose not only gambled, he lied about it for years. That's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of reasons why he's not in the Hall of Fame. Not just because he gambled, but because he kept saying he didn't gamble, and he kept challenging it, and he kept lying. That's why he's not in the Hall of Fame. It's not just because of gambling. That's part of it too. He had a chance to go in the Hall of Fame and blew it. So, he made that decision, not the MLB. So, I mean, I get what you guys are saying. It's hypocritical, blah, blah. I agree. But let's stop blaming just the NFL and the betting. Let's start putting the blame where it belongs also on the individual who definitely knows it's wrong. You know it's wrong to go through a stoplight. You don't blame the cop when he pulls you over and gives you a ticket, do you? You blew it. You made a mistake. You did a wrong thing. Let's start holding the individuals accountable too. As far as betting in the boxing goes, Jack, you made me think of something. If Davis bet against himself to lose and lost, what would have happened?
He'd be suspended and he'd be allowed back at some point. He'd go into counseling. They'd say he'd be back in a couple of years without question. He wouldn't be permanently banned if he flagrantly threw a fight, for example, and all the people paid all that money. That would be a sticky situation if he flagrantly threw the fight, because a lot of people could sue and this and that. That you kind of wonder, you know. But he would find his way back into boxing, you know. Because boxing's a gutter sport, you know.
Yes, I do. Little bit on college baseball. College baseball World Series is going on right now. And where are we at? Game one was won by Florida. No, they held off Florida. So I'm trying to get the team that played against Florida here in the ninth inning. Justin Larkin, 2 relievers stretch. Texas A&M holds off Florida 3-2. It's a lot different watching the highlights when the ball hits the bat and you hear the ping. Right? I don't know why college baseball still has aluminum bats. I don't realize why don't they change over to wood? If they're going to play in the major leagues, they got to use wood. Why do they use aluminum bats? I don't understand.
I know. I kind of wonder, is college baseball ever going to become nearly as popular as, you know, college basketball, football? It just doesn't approach it. You know, even the draft, we hardly know who's coming out. I think that'll change someday, you know, because, you know, these sports evolve. There was a time when the NFL draft wasn't that big a thing. I remember going in, I think, 1986, and I went to this hotel in the balcony to watch it, and it was the first round of the draft was going on. And there were a number of empty seats. I mean, it wasn't crowded. It was like a work day in Manhattan, you know, crazy. And now it's a whole big spectacle. Same thing with the NBA draft. I would go, I remember going to the Felt Forum, Madison Square Garden, small arena, but it was easy to get in. Now it's a big thing, but the NBA draft isn't nearly as big as the NFL draft. What do you guys think of this thing July 4th coming up with Joey Chestnut with the Nathan's hot dog eating contest? You know, they're not using it for that. I mean, that's more interesting to a lot of people, believe it or not, than the college baseball World Series. More people are talking about Joey Chestnut than any college baseball player. I mean, I can't start naming college baseball players. I'll be honest about it. But we're all focused on this hot dog eating contest. I mean, the controversy.
You got to hit me to what's the controversy.
I know about you.
Oh, Joey Chestnut.
Well, he's not being allowed.
Hot dog eating contest. Joey Chestnut has been an icon. Every July 4th, people tune in to see him eat his 65, 70 hot dogs or whatever, you know, in the 12-minute span. And he's banned this year because he's under the banner sponsorship of another hot dog company. I think I forgot the exact name. It's not Nathan's. And Nathan's feels it only has to be their brand. So they're not letting him participate. And it's twofold now. The reason a lot of the people watched the contest was because of Joey Chestnut. He's the big draw. You know, he wins it each year. There's that familiarity. Says Nathan's spiting themselves or not. If they let him come in, you know, it just kind of reminds me of when Michael Jordan was with the Olympics. He was representing Nike, but there was another brand sponsor for the Olympic players. So he didn't want to take off his Nike thing, and they found some middle ground where he wore his Nike thing, but they threw something on top. I don't know, but there's some talk. And Mac hates the contest anyway because they eat the buns without the bread, and to Mac, that's not really eating a hot dog.
No,
I agree with him. When I first saw one of those contests, I was like, "Oh, they're dipping it in water and they're eating the bread and then eating the hot dog separately." I guess you're finding a different way to win. But I was like, shouldn't you eat the whole hot dog? That defeats the whole purpose of seeing how it's done. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yes, I do too. I've watched hamburger eating contests, and they don't take the hamburger apart; they eat the whole burger, and that's the way they should do it with hot dogs too.
How do you train for that? How
You
why not get
starve.
a for that?
I guess you starve yourself for 3 days before you go there. I don't know, but that's kind of crazy. Listen, it's a plant-based hot dog company that he's sponsoring now. And that's probably easier to eat than the beef franks too. So maybe he thinks he would get a leg up on plant-based that would fully dissolve in his mouth before he swallowed them. I don't know, but I have no interest in hot dog eating contests. But I do agree with you that there are certain people to me, sports people to me would rather watch the College World Series than the hot dog eating contest. In my, if you're really a sports guy, if you're one of those people that just want to, are kind of just cruising to watch something, maybe that catches your eye more. I don't know, but I think a real sports person would rather watch the College Baseball World Series than
Mac, how many sports fans sit down? Let's be honest about it.
Mhm.
I'll throw it to James, who's obviously a big sports fan. James, would you have the patience to sit down and watch a whole College World Series baseball game? You probably wouldn't.
No,
Sit down and
I'll
just
be
watch
honest
the
with you.
game.
No, I watch the highlights mostly. Now, like you said,
Same with me.
look, I don't watch just like the March Madness. I don't watch basketball, college basketball until March Madness happens. It's just not fun. It's just boring. And baseball, for me specifically, college baseball is the same. And so I watch the highlights, or I because I'm an LSU fan, and sometimes when they're involved, I may watch, them watch a game or two here and there. But for the most part, I'm on the highlights. It's just not there for me.
There's
But again,
too much sports going on. But the exception's going to be where we could sit down and watch a whole game. I think the exception is going to be certain NFL games where we could sit down, like your New Orleans Saints, you could sit down and watch the whole game. But you're probably multitasking then a little bit like I am. I'm watching the plays. I'm sitting there, and in between plays, I might be checking up on something. And then when they get to the line of scrimmage, I'm there, watching. And even
Right.
baseball batters, if I have to go somewhere, how many batters are going to keep me at the TV? If Aaron Judge is up, I don't leave. I wait till his at-bat is done because that's kind of like entertainment, at that point. But it's not like it used to be. We have too many things going on, too many sports, too much social media, too many responsibilities as adults to, just sit there and watch a whole game. Now, if the Yankees are in a decisive game to decide in the playoffs whether they move on to the next round, I'm watching the whole game. If it's an elimination game, either advance or go home. But otherwise, if it's a Yankee game during the year, I try to catch, as much as I reasonably can. But it's not going to have my full attention.
I don't know. It depends on the game. It depends on who's pitching. If I have a chance to watch the new young rookie pitcher, they got Lewis Heel, I might watch, a good 6 innings to see how he pitches. And that's mainly out of curiosity. Depending on who they're playing, if they're playing Boston, I might watch it a little longer than if they're playing, the Tampa Bay, or Toronto, or, I might do that just because it's Yankees versus Boston. But I agree with you, Jack. I mean, there's so much to do, but it's really, we're doing nothing. And that's kind of the sad thing. I mean, if I'm going to go outside, if I have a choice of watching even an NFL game or going somewhere and having a good time somewhere, I'm probably going somewhere and having a good time somewhere. I'm probably going to a cookout. I'm probably doing something like that than rather sitting down and watching an NFL game, even if it's the Giants, unless it's a playoff or a game that could put them in the playoffs. It depends on the game, right? But there's a lot of time doing nothing when we're I don't know. It's just crazy for me anyway. Let's do this real quick. We got like 15 minutes left. We didn't cover the AFC with their projected wins that are out there right now. And I think the AFC East might be the AFC North of last year. I think there's going to be 3 teams near the top from what I'm looking at here. And you start off with last year with Buffalo, who won the division. You know, they lost Diggs, they lost some defense, but they still got a very talented quarterback. They still got a good coach. I still think they're going to be really valid this year. Their wins are at 10.5. Let's start with you, James. Do they go over 10.5? Do they get 11 wins this year?
I like them at 10. I like them specifically at 10. I mean, as much as a malcontent that Stephon Diggs was, he's still a pretty good wide receiver. So they lost one there. They drafted a wide receiver, but he's not the same guy.
Deion Coleman's going to be pretty good.
I think he's going to be pretty good. But again, we're talking about potential, you know? I mean, but I agree. I think he's going to be pretty good. And I think they have a very, very, very underrated, I mean, not underrated, but a very good quarterback there. So you put some weapons around him. I think they're good. I think James Cook is a decent running back. And I forgot who they picked up in the offseason in regards to wide receiver, besides the rookie, Keon Cole.
Was it Clay Clayton or something like that? Something like that.
Claypool.
Claypool, yes.
Yeah, not a good player. I mean, they didn't really jump up. I mean, that's not pushing the meter at all. I mean, he was a second-round draft pick, and he was a bust. I mean, and he didn't. Every team he's been on a team every year. When he left the Pittsburgh Steelers, he went to Chicago, didn't do well. He went somewhere else. Now he's in Buffalo. So I mean, we'll see.
From what reportedly, he wasn't easy to get along with.
Right.
I don't know whether that could be just a bad rap. I'm not sure, but that's
true.
Yeah.
Well, what he did on the field was not, was bad. It wasn't good. So, but I still like them at 10 wins. I think they can. I mean, 10 wins will get you in the playoffs. So hopefully, if they beat out the Dolphins look to be the team to me in that division. And between the Dolphins, I'm surprised I'm going to pick the Jets, but I don't want to go too far into that. But I like
Jack. What do you think about the Buffalo Bills? 10.5. That's about where they were last year. I think they won 11 games last year. You think they're pretty much the same as last year, losing Stephon Diggs?
I don't know what to think about the Buffalo Bills because I thought last year their window had closed going into the season, and I looked for them to just be 8-9, 9-8. I thought they'd be just another team in the middle of the pack out there, and they actually got better as the year went along, and they gave Kansas City all they could handle in the playoffs. They could have won that game, and who knows how far they would have then went, in regards to the Super Bowl. So Buffalo, they could be, if they hold serve, they're a contender. All they have to do is really hold serve. Have they slipped at all? I don't think the loss of Stephon Diggs is going to hurt as much as people think. Because keep in mind, by the end of the year, he wasn't being used that much in comparison to the other receivers. The ball would constantly be spread around. It wasn't a case of him being the star receiver who everything revolved around. So I don't think the loss hurts the Bills, that much. It might help the Texans a lot getting Stephon Diggs more than it's going to hurt Buffalo. And right now, I don't know what to make out of them. If I had to guess, I'd say, the 10-11 win range, if I had to guess, fast. So I just don't know.
Yeah, I think they do more. Stephon Diggs, losing Stephon Diggs is not just a wide receiver with double coverage. Maybe they roll the defense's way, and that's probably taken away. But you still got Josh Allen, can run with the ball, can throw the ball, makes unbelievable plays. If the defense is as good as it was last year, there's no reason why they shouldn't win, 10, 11 games. I'm going to go more with them, and I'm going to push right to the Jets. I think the Jets are the best team. Aaron Rodgers or Roy Rodgers, whoever was quarterbacking at the time, healthy. I think the Jets are the best team in the AFC East this year, and they're at 9.5 wins as their odds. I think they do 10, 11 wins this year.
I think they'll go over 9.5 off the top of my head. This is like a make or break year for the Jets. I mean, I don't want to say Super Bowl or bust because the expectations aren't as high this year as they were last year. Last year, if I told you the Jets would make the playoffs and get eliminated, first game, you'd say, what a big disappointment. If they make the playoffs and get knocked off, the first game of the playoffs, you wouldn't consider the year a failure because they haven't been in the playoffs in ages. But the Jets checked off all the boxes. They addressed the offensive line and free agency and the draft. Wide receiver, they addressed it, in the trade for Mike Williams and getting Corley, in the draft. And they've addressed it, their running back position. They drafted a couple of running backs, backup quarterback. They addressed that. If Hassan Riddick, if his contract thing gets worked out, if he comes, to camp motivated at some point. I mean, they've checked the boxes. I mean, they're ready to go, and they should win 10, 11 games. I mean, I don't look for them to be a 13-win team, like to be a dominant team, but I look at them to be a pretty good team. But that's where we get back to what I said before. New England's the weak link in that division, but if New England exceeds expectations, it's got to be at the expense of someone else in the East. Is it going to be the Jets? Is it going to be the Dolphins? Is it going to be the Bills? I mean, not every team is going to be, that good. So the X factor is if the Patriots, like I said, are better than we think they're going to be. At whose expense is it going to be?
Yeah. And James, with the Jets, I mean, I think this is their year for Super Bowl or bust, in my opinion. I really do. I think they got an incredible defense. Aaron Rodgers is not going to get any younger. They got a great running game. Their wide receivers are a little young, but still they're very talented. And if they don't do it this year, I don't know if they do it ever. As far as with Rodgers there, but I still think they could be in first place in the tiebreaker over the Bills this year. I think they're that good.
I think so too. I was alluding to that earlier. I would say that the Jets, their situation last year with the ruptured Achilles with Aaron Rodgers is what everything went downhill from there. Injury to the running back as well, the star running back that they have. Barring any injury, if they don't have any major injuries as well, Aaron Rodgers is more than capable of protecting the ball. He's not going to throw any interceptions. Yeah. And he's got great weapons to throw to. And I think having Olu Fashanu as their that's who they drafted, right? As their tackle. Yeah, Olu Fashanu. I believe this kid's going to help him on the blind side. And I think it's great.
He's supposed to be a backup this year, primarily. That's the
I'm pretty sure it's not a problem. Yeah, because they got Tyron Smith, yes. But Tyron Smith still's got some something left in the tank, and he may end up playing anyway because Tyron Smith does have injury history as well. So I just think that I picked them. That's my pick to win that division, and I give them 12 games easily, if barring no major injury.
Let me ask you this, James Mack. The Jets were 7-10 last year. They were 4-3, and they had to struggle to get to 4-3. They got that fluke victory over the Giants, a game that the Giants blew as much as the Jets won. It was a disgrace the way the Giants threw that game away, But had Tyrod Taylor been with the Jets last year, had he been their backup quarterback instead of Zach Wilson, how much of a difference would that have made? Because the Jets felt obligated to stick with Zach Wilson, the number 2 overall pick. But had Tyrod Taylor been there, instead of 7-10, is it possible they would have gone 10-7? 9-8, 10-7.
I give them 2 more games, 9-8. Not having a running game too as well. That hurt them as well.
They did have somewhat of a running game at the end of the year. I think Tyrod Taylor puts them in the playoffs as a wild card team. I think he listen, he's been a starting quarterback for a long time. He showed what he could do still with the Giants at the end of the year with less weapons than the Jets have. And he's still a threat to run. I think the Jets get a wild card and maybe enough time for Aaron Rodgers to get back for the playoffs. So I think it might have changed everything there for the Jets, not having Zach Wilson. But this year, if Aaron Rodgers does go down, they do definitely have a competent backup. Let's quickly go to Miami. New England, I know we all think is going to finish last. Miami seems to lack that physicality in the end to win the game. I piss all these Miami fans off when I say it, but it's true. They're a speed team. They're offensive. They're great. Defensive, they're okay. But when they go up against a physical team at the end of the year, and not in Miami, they get beat, and they get beat pretty handily. And I still think that's their problem. They need to get physically. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you teach that. I guess you get players that have played in physical, hard northern games. I guess that's how you do it. I see Miami at 9.5 wins. I see them at 9 wins this year. That's where I see them under.
They're the Rolls-Royce team of the NFL, the Dolphins. They remind me of someone who drives this fancy car, you take a look at it as it goes by. It's really, real hot rod. But then it's always in the body shop. It always has things going wrong with it one way or the other. It doesn't give it the stability. I mean, they're entertaining. If you had to get tickets to a game, guys, to watch a team play, and you went down the whole NFL roster, the Dolphins would be one of the top teams who you would want to see your team play for entertainment value, right? For entertainment. But, something is missing there. They're going to look great for a few games. Tua might be lighting it up with Hill, Waddle, OBJ will compliment them, etc. The running game is good, but somehow, they hit a bump and they just don't get there. Like my co-host Frank Laterza, a lifelong Dolphin fan, he said last year when the Dolphins were going great, they'll crash. Don't get excited. You'll see. He said it with absolute confidence, and they crashed, like he said.
He was right. James, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I mean, look, a team of speed is one thing, but I mean, you can win. You can win with speed. I mean, let's go through the history. I mean, it's not all the time, but we're talking about the greatest show on turf with the Rams, the St. Louis Rams. They had nothing but speed on their team. I mean, running back and at wide receiver, and they won a Super Bowl and won it too. So I'm not.
They had a coach that had taken a team to the Super Bowl, and Dick Vermeil, he had taken the Eagles before, so they had that stability.
Right. So I think the main thing is not just the speed. I think it's more so who's making the plans, and I mean who's orchestrating everything. So I guess we got to question coaching and the schemes that they're running, and injury. I mean, getting injured is also a factor as well, like you said. So that goes into toughness. So we'll have to see. But I mean, they have the potential. If they can stay injury free, they have the potential to be the next greatest show on turf, because that offense is pretty something special.
I'm trying to remember where St. Louis. I think St. Louis, when you talk about the greatest show on turf, and of course, the greatest show on turf, the best offense of all time was when Peyton Manning was with the Broncos. But if you're talking about when you had the great wide receivers on the outside, and I'm trying to remember the running back. I think he came over from the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, they scored a lot of points, but
when they had Marshall.
Thank you, Jack. So Marshall Faulk was there, a great running back, and they won 2 Super Bowls? Am I correct, or one?
Who are we talking about?
Oh no, if you're talking about the Broncos,
the St. Louis Rams, we're talking about right now.
They won 2 years. They won one. They went 2 years in a row.
Right. They lost the first Super Bowl for the Patriots, right?
And they beat Tennessee the year before that. Yeah.
All right.
Right.
So there you go.
They had Marshall Faulk, he said.
Right. So anyway, they were still a pretty tough team. That was going to be my eventual point. And right now, the Dolphins at the end of the year don't look so tough, and that's the only reason why I'm saying that. And I have to agree with Frank Laterzo, who I was picking Miami maybe to go to Super Bowl last year. And he's like, Mac.
I remember you after the first game of the year, like the Chargers and Dolphins, you said that's your AFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And the wheels really fell off the Chargers, who I think. If we're not talking about it this show, I'm sure, because of time limitations, but in the AFC West, I'm not that optimistic the Chargers will have a much of a year next year, even though I think they'll be good on the Harbaugh eventually.
I agree. And Jack, you are correct. Running out of time here. Thanks, James. Thanks, Jack. Thanks to Keith. Thanks to Keith Engel and the Philly Sports Guy. And again, happy Father's Day. Enjoy your Sundays.